Howdy, folks. Happy hump day. Happy Wednesday. We'll do some pre-show stuff, even though somebody on Twitter said that the pre-show was basically me and Russ liking the sound of our own voices. And I'm like, and to that person, I say, kiss my ass. No, just, but no, we have to start with the joys of being a fan of sports franchises in New York City. And we'll start with the one that Russ cares the least about. The lead up to the NFL the NBA draft lottery yesterday, where I watch and listen to New York radio, and they were talking about the Knicks, who have had a streak of ineptitude as long as, say, the Leafs in hockey and the Bills and the Jets in
Hold on. It's not the same as the Leafs, because their last championship was 1973 and the Leafs was 1967. Let's be accurate here, Mike.
Okay, and the Knicks have gotten to the NBA Finals. They just lose. But
that's true.
They have not had the first pick in the draft since David Stern fixed it for Patrick Ewing.
Oh my God! Will you stop?
So, and unlike the NHL, the NBA has decided that they want to discourage tanking. So the top four in the draft basically have even odds. I think it's like 13 or 14%. So it came out, and the four teams that got the top four picks were Memphis, New Orleans, the Lakers, who were like a 2% chance, and the Knicks. And the Knicks got third place after having the worst record in the league. I think they had 17 wins last year. And Russ, the hue and cry from the New York fans and media after the Knicks got the third pick was hilarious.
Yeah, it's just, I almost don't care about those fans, because at this point, if you've hung on with that team for this long, something's wrong with you anyhow. Like, it just is. I mean, it's just, there's so many things that have gone wrong there that now something goes wrong there every year. So I didn't expect them to win it. What I didn't like was the fact, and this is the difference between the NBA and the NHL. The NHL, a smaller market, lesser market team, if they win the first round pick, first overall selection, they don't get ripped for being like a bad team and like a bad city. Like, I never heard that for the NHL draft, but for the NBA draft, it's like, oh, the Pelicans, they're not only horrible, it's a horrible city, and now maybe their top player will stay there, but who cares? It's horrible. This is horrible for the league. No, that's what's good for the league, is when the worst team actually gets a player like that. That actually is good for a league.
Yeah, but what's being said here is, and it goes across all sports. Of course, the commissioners of these leagues, they have to be unbiased. They have to, show that they care about every member of the league, not just the ones in big markets. But we know that it's beneficial for, especially in the NHL, for big players to be in big markets. And there would have been a benefit had Zion Williamson gone to LA with LeBron, or gone to the Knicks, who have been bad for a long time.
I'm not sure if there's a benefit. I'll argue that, because D'Angelo Russell went to the Lakers, and he was a high pick, and they got rid of him. They traded him pretty quick. I mean, I could make you an argument. The Lakers are as dysfunctional as any team out there, any franchise out there. Just because they're in LA,
right,
doesn't make it any better for that guy to go there. LeBron James did nothing for LA this year.
Well, because he was playing by himself, basically.
No, but the fans didn't even want him there. That's the funny thing about it.
Right. But then, New Orleans, as you said, Anthony Davis was basically trying to force his way out of New Orleans. And now all of a sudden, since they got the number one pick, now there's talk about him actually staying in New Orleans.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's good. I don't know if that's bad. All I know.
But let's stop talking about that league. Here's the real story. The real story is.
Go ahead.
I'm just going to sit back here and eat.
The New York Jets fired.
You have to hear yourself talk. I'm just going to sit back here and eat.
That's fine. You do that, Eck. We'll watch you eat. That's more.
You eat your cup of noodles.
Yeah. The New York Jets fired their GM and their director of player personnel. Now, the interesting thing is, this goes back to when they fired their coach, Todd Bowles, and hired Adam Gase in January, had a horrible press conference. Everybody made fun of him because of his eyes. I didn't. And then I'll tell you the reason I didn't. Because, again, he was coming from an area like Miami, going to New York. And when you have to do a press conference in New York, it's pretty daunting. And I think that was what we saw. And so I gave the guy a pass. But what I didn't see that day, and I wrote about it, I probably talked about it here, was the fact that the GM didn't really speak that day. And the coach was hired, and the GM said nothing. So I said, clearly this GM is in trouble.
Yeah.
But I guess he wasn't in trouble enough because they let him go through the draft, and they let him go through the free agency period where he spent like $87 of $112 million on free agents, and then they fired him. Now, for the Jets, the worst possible outcome was this, because they basically had to do well in this draft. Now, if you want to say, Williams was a good first pick, was it Kenan Williams? I forget how you pronounce his first name. Quellen Williams, whatever it is.
Back here.
Yeah. He might be a good pick, right? The rest of the picks were all like home run chances. And that's what all the experts said. So now that guy, you fired him. You gave him a chance to stock your team this year for your number one rookie quarterback, Sam Darnold, and we don't know if that really happened. There's still some openings. So you spent a lot of money on Le'Veon Bell and a few other guys, and now most of that money's gone after you sign the rookies. So they fire the guy. Now the talk is, hey, let's hire this guy who's on the NFL Network. The Raiders did that. They hired Mike Mayock. They made him the GM. This guy would be, director of player personnel. He had a previous NFL job. I get it. But sometimes guys should stay fired because Mike Mayock was a horror show in that draft, and I'll be shocked if the Raiders did any good things in that draft other than acquire a lot more picks than they had. But the outcome, most people said, was indecisive. We don't know.
I have to say this because we want to get started here, and we don't know.
I got one more. You gotta have to wait a second, then you can say it. So now the Jets are reaching out to the director of player personnel of the Eagles, Joe Douglas. Well, guess what? When you're reaching out for a guy that's literally at this point in the year, when you're in May, this is what the NFL is telling Chris to do. Chris Johnson of Johnson & Johnson. The NFL is telling him to do that. He's not telling him to do that because the only guy in the Jets front office is Adam Gase. So to all these Eagles fans that think I want this guy because he's done a few good drafts, no, I don't. Because all this is a Band-Aid. The guy from the NFL Network is a Band-Aid. All of this is bad news. Go ahead, Mike. Now you can finish.
Mike?
And Mike froze. Perfect.
Mike is frozen in time.
The only time Mike didn't have a retort for something.
Now, I think you said it. I think you said all that needs to be said. For all those Jets. It's the funniest part of this whole thing to me today was the text chain that we have where you text out, this freaking Jets, and then Peter texts back, "What now?" That I love. That was like a great moment of like sitting there like, oh man, that's awesome.
Well, to bring it to hockey, if I just put Jets on Twitter, which I do sometimes, Winnipeg Jets fans chime in, and they're not happy with their team right now. So they're sort of like, yeah, we feel it too.
Yeah.
They just wanted GM to come out of the witness protection program.
Well, it's almost become like it's funny. I hope Mike's okay. I really enjoyed my little nap before this show, though. Thanks. It was nice.
That's good.
I was talking to somebody else today, and they were like, Shovel Dave, who knows where the hell he is? Like, we don't have any idea, like, what's going on with him. He's completely – you never get anything from Shovel Dave, first of all, like, just to know, like, a rumor. As far as rumors go, he's the worst. He's right up there with anybody. Like, he is absolutely the worst, as Peter knows.
Yeah, you get nothing.
Very well. Good, Peter, you're muted, but you can put your 2 cents in for that.
Sorry, there we go. He's terrible for that. I was actually yesterday, before I came out to Saskatoon, I was in a meeting with a friend of mine who basically says he's really involved with the Jets Foundations and some stuff like that and all their charity work, and he's been a long time sort of a friend of Mark Chipman, the owner. And he goes, he goes, he's back in town. He goes, I'm finally having my debrief with Mark next week. We're going out for a long lunch. And he goes, I got to hear what's going on.
It's going to be a really long lunch.
Yeah, I'm hoping to catch up with him in about 10 days and find out what he's got.
Yeah.
I also want to say this, Ek. The Vancouver Canucks are not the only team doing this, so I'm not just picking on them. Every team now seems to be using that kid app where you turn players back into children, right?
Oh, Lord.
But the problem with the Canucks is they basically did this with Quinn Hughes. Basically, my answer back to the Canucks was you turned Quinn Hughes into Jack Hughes. That's all you did.
Yeah,
Has no facial hair. That all you did was make him his younger brother.
All those Hughes kids are like, crazy young looking anyway. My God.
I know. So like, why did you use him? Use somebody who's like 40 years old. Don't use somebody who's literally just in the league. It was crazy.
That is ridiculous. So Mike is stuck somewhere in no man's land right now. What happened?
That's why it's so quiet.
Yeah, we're all still on.
No Leafs talk, people. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry, no Leafs talk today. And one thing real quick. So we got a comment in the in one of the YouTube people saying that you guys, I guess, had a discussion the other day about paper straws.
Yes. Mike complained about it. Can you believe it?
Which is unbelievable to me. Like, and I agree completely with the person in the who said that is it. And paper straws are a wonderful thing, a fantastic idea. Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm the one who said that. Mike argued with me. He was complaining about paper straws because 2 hours later, with his drink, it was disintegrating. And I'm like, yes, that's exactly what you want to happen in a landfill. So then, So then Mike's example was, well, why can't it be recycled? Well, not recyclable. Plastic that deteriorates in sunlight in straws. And I'm like, because they don't make it in straws. It'd be too expensive. They don't use that for straws. That's why paper's good. Mike was wrong, and Mike's here, and I don't care.
Anything that comes with a straw should be drunk within a very short period of time. Like,
yeah, exactly.
We talked about this a couple of days ago.
And we got a comment about it. I wasn't here for it, and I was like really upset with you, Mike, that you would have a problem with paper straws, which are incredible for the environment. And
screw the environment. I care about the straw getting all soaky and wet. Come on.
Oh my God.
If you want to reach Mike, you can reach him at the RNC.
No, but okay, this is make straws out of biodegradable plastic.
No, it's too expensive, Mike. They're not going to do that.
Horse crap. Anyway,
okay, can I tell you something? Hold on. Everybody who watches this show and is on this show and listens to this show has nieces and nephews and everybody else that if you want to see them grow up in a halfway decent world, just drink out of a goddamn paper straw.
Thank you. I know. I mean, Russ and his wife do amazing stuff with animals. Conservational wise. And I on the other hand, I have a son who's going to be probably a zoologist, so I'm constantly on top of all this stuff. I watch every nature documentaries ever known to man.
And Mike's
got an incredible thing that he's going to get to go with this group on a trip to the Galapagos Islands next summer. That's amazing.
And Mike is the Satan of the environment. Yeah. So
yes, Mike is that rare Venn diagram that where Sarah McLachlan meets the Republican Party. There's not a whole lot of people that cross over there. There's not a lot of crossover in that Venn diagram, but the only one that there's one point of light in there, and that would be Mike.
I am unique.
That's for sure.
Let's start the show because my computer shut down basically in protest of all the Jets talk.
And all of you guys who made fun of him, like Lord Oberman just said, Gritty gets paid $6,000 an hour. If you want Gritty at your event.
Gritty is $6,000 an hour.
6 G's. Gritty doesn't leave home for less than 6 G's. All right.
And that's American, Peter. That's not Canadian money.
We're talking. Yeah, we're not. Yeah, that's like 25,000 Canadian or whatever it is. Yeah.
Burn him at the stake. Anyway, let's start.
Anyway, here we go. Ready?
Yeah.
Isn't that 25,000 Canadian? I think that's the way it works. Anyway, all right. Here we go.
9,000 Canadian. Linda Evangelista money.
I guess things are getting better up there. All right, here we go. Hello, Hockey World. It's Wednesday, May 15th. I'm just kidding. Hello, Hockey World. I can't do it. I love Canada. You guys know this. Hello, Hockey World. It's Wednesday, May 15th, 2019.
I'm Beelzebub Michelangelo.
I'm Peter Tessier in rainy Saskatoon.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology. It's 70 degrees outside, but for some reason in my old house, it's still like 60 in here, so that's why I'm wearing a sweatshirt.
And I am Eklund. And you're in trouble when your wife's away at a conference, which my wife is right now, and showing up at your door today, overnighted from Amazon, is a power washer. Might be time to do the deck. Anyway, you're watching Hockey Buzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes every Monday through Friday at this time to fill you in on the comings and goings in the hockey world. And anyway, we got a lot to get into. First of all, let's start off. I got some rumors. I promised you guys rumors. I'm sorry I wasn't here yesterday, so I promised you rumors. I've got rumors galore today. I'm all set with rumors. I'm all filled up to the brim with rumors. I got a good one involving a trade between the Flyers and Winnipeg Jets too. So we'll get to that as well. Okay. But let's start off with last night's game. And can
we sing the funeral dirge for the Carolina?
No, we cannot because
yes, we can.
They're still playing and everybody else is not. So they still
were they playing? That's debatable too. Yeah. So we'll talk about it.
Exactly. They played. It was one of those games you just knew. I mean, Rask is in the zone. Like there's
no. This has nothing to do with Rask. It really doesn't.
I don't know. The 20 shots in the first period and no goals had something to do with Rask.
Okay, but fine. You want to go with just shots?
You got a lead in that game. It's
no. I'll let Russ go because he's going to say what he's going to say. What I'm saying here, but this is the point. The Carolina Hurricanes. What was the one flaw that we said throughout the year that was their problem? Scoring. And what is their problem now in the playoffs? Scoring.
If only they were good enough to get to the Final Four.
Their power play is 4 for 46.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's no two ways about that.
No, but there's a little more though. And Rask is playing great, right? And I actually did tweet out he's playing at Tim Thomas levels, and then someone said or Tuukka Rask levels of 2013. But I did that tweet for all the haters because they always want to look back at Tim Thomas like, hey, he's so much better than Tuukka Rask.
This is better than Rask in 2013, but go ahead. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but not that much. I mean, but the idea is this. When we look at this team, yesterday I said, hey, Carolina can't fall behind 2-0. If they do, the game's over. And they did, and the game was over. Now, they had all these power play chances and 5-on-3. Dougie Hamilton was missing the net.
Let's talk about that.
John Starks in the
Dougie Hamilton has been a disaster on the power play. I agree with you, Russ. Really, it's downright.
Let him continue. You had Justin Falk there. I mean, when it gets to the point where they're just letting Dougie Hamilton walk in on the 5-on-3 and he can't even hit the net, someone's got to go up to him on the ice and rotate him out.
Well, you know what he looks like to me? He looks like he's afraid of something.
Yes.
You get that impression too? Like he's afraid.
When it was that 5-on-3, that last shot he took was so hesitant.
Yeah.
Like, you know what he needed to do? If he had thought about it or had the composure, and I get it, it's easy for me to say, he should have done like a fake shot and passed it down low, and he might have gotten a goal out of one of those. Yeah. And look, Teravainen, you can't miss an open net like that. But you can't go back and say, well, they got to the Final Four. If they get swept here, their season still isn't a great season. I'm sorry.
Right. Well, I want to give. I want to get Peter's.
True.
Go ahead, Peter.
You know what? I don't have anything to add because I only watched the tail end of the third last night.
I have a question for you then. Someone tweeted me when I was talking about, Dougie Hamilton, who I've always been a fan of, and I like. Me too. And there's a million things he hasn't done, but just you wait. That's a Hamilton reference. But no, here's the thing that I wanted to ask you, Peter, because I put this out there and I'm like, Dougie Hamilton is hesitant at the blue line. He's making odd plays. He's big and not playing big sometimes. And then someone immediately replied to me, well, if you can't get him, Tyler Myers is always available. Do you feel like Tyler Myers and Dougie Hamilton have some things in common, Peter?
Well, it's not height. I know that. There's nothing in common.
Okay.
Dougie Hamilton does everything well that Tyler Myers doesn't. And, whatever the weird sort of vibe is around Hamilton is certainly not the case with Myers either. There's no weird vibe around him. They're just totally different players. Tyler Myers is basically a poor man's right-hand defenseman who's going to get paid a lot of money due to a shortage of right-handed defensemen.
Right. Well, this is the thing. This is the thing I didn't understand about last night about that key power play, which was a 5-on-3 power play. I think it was like 1 minute and 30 seconds. Yeah. Right. Now they've struggled on power play. Like I said, I think it's 4 for 46. On a 5-on-3, when most teams, if they use 2 defensemen on a 5-on-3, they'll use 1 defenseman and go with 4 forwards. Brindamore went with 2 defensemen on a 5-on-3. He had Hamilton and he had Falk, and I basically deferred to each other because I don't think they usually use Falk and Hamilton on the same.
No, they should have gone just Falk. That's what
they do. That whole like one band. They do that whole like one defenseman.
And now, but that's one thing. So structurally, I think it was unsound, but maybe he was trying something different because their power play has been so unsuccessful the entire postseason. But honestly, I look at Dougie Hamilton, and this is the reason why when people were talking about Dougie Hamilton being on the market and Toronto being interested, why I was scared to death, because Dougie Hamilton is a flawed defensive player. He's not that good.
Yeah,
and he's making. I think he's making $5.75 million, and there's no coincidence that that's the guy they want to trade instead of Falk or instead of Slavin or instead of Pesci.
I don't know. I mean,
holes in his game, Mac.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, this is definitely. I think he's better than people give him credit for. I think
so too. I think generally that's true, but
he's still young enough. Honestly, as crazy as it sounds, is in defenseman years, he's not that. He still has time to like. This is no. There's no question. I mean, the pressure on Dougie Hamilton right now is unbelievable. I mean, like
he was drafted in 2011.
2011, yeah. So I mean, yeah. All right. So
he's 26 years old.
He's 26 years old, right? So
he's
coming into his defensive prime, So
the defenseman he is now is the defenseman he's going to be. Usually, defensemen do not change when they're 26.
Yeah, but I think that I do think that there's no question that he's never been under this kind of pressure. I mean, you're talking about a very, very intense situation. I mean, who would think that he would be the one, the main focal point on a power play?
No, I agree.
In the final four.
So 2 other things. I knew the Carolina team was in trouble before the game even started yesterday. When people are writing about how great a shape Rod Brindamore is in, like if you want to talk about a team that's in trouble, let's start talking about the kind of shape the coach is in that has no bearing on the game whatsoever. You know that's a problem. Now that they've lost the home game, which you said nobody's in trouble.
Now you're in trouble.
They lose the home game. They didn't just lose that home game. That was a disaster of a home game.
Yeah.
Well, no, they didn't it wasn't like game 2. I mean, they were in that game.
No, but back, the thing is, you have all the emotions surging. You get 20 shots in the first period, and you can't put a puck in the net. Now, you can say that's.
No, I know. There's no question. I mean, and Rask made some great saves, and they shot into him a couple times too, and they missed a couple open nets. They hit a couple posts, as is the norm. This is how it goes, right?
And Rask, of course, is going to make great saves. He has been great, and there's no question. But I can't say Rask was the reason that they won that Boston won that game, because I believe Carolina lost that game.
Can I make one kind of funny note on this thing? Can we talk about the incredible job that McElhaney did to make that puck look like it didn't go over the goal line?
Yeah. Well, that's what we always talked about. I'm so tired of goalies being like David Copperfield, all these sleight of hand guys.
That was amazing, though.
I know. But we have to, and he's been in the league long enough to learn how to do it. I said from the very beginning when we had goalie cameras that they were going to figure out how to obscure the view, and they do it all the time. That's why we really want that chip in the puck, so when it crosses the line, we don't care what it looks like on camera because we know it's in the net.
That puck was in, and the funny thing about it, because at first I'm like, oh, he's got it in his when he first makes a save, and then he gets his glove on it. He sweeps his glove back around and underneath, and then holds it over the goal line, like with his glove wide open for the camera above to see.
Yeah,
which couldn't style point. Like holding it at the end for the camera above to see is just like that's serious style.
DeBrusque pushed him into the net.
Oh yeah, no, it didn't matter, but there is no time on the instant replay where you can definitively tell if that puck's over the line.
Until he's holding it up basically like this.
Yeah, in front of the line. Yet when you look at it, there's no way it couldn't have gone over the line unless he somehow pinned it underneath his body, brought the glove back around, and as he was bringing it back around, grabbed it. But I think he grabbed it way earlier than that, and brought the glove into the net back around. It was just so – I'm like, wow, that's just damn impressive. I'm sorry. That was one of the more like impressive sleight of hand you'll ever see in a live sporting event. Like he just
now people in the chat room are like, David Copperfield, really? Like, I'm sorry, I'm not naming. I once saw Doug Henning live. I'm not a big Magic guy, and that's the only Magic show I ever saw live.
Are you supposed to use Kreskin or?
I would like to make
Caulfield. Like, whatever. Who cares?
Chris Angel.
Magic. It's one of my bottom 5 things in the world. Magic. I can't stand it. I don't like anything about it. I hate magicians. But I'm just saying that this was throwing it out there. But this was an incredible sleight of hand to me. Like, this was just.
It was.
I mean, and he played well. I thought. I mean, you got to give him credit.
Oh, he played really well. He did.
Like someone said, should he be back in Game 4? Yes, he should definitely be in Game 4. There's no two ways about it. He was better than Mrazek would have been by far.
Do you agree that the defense of Carolina has not been fixed
Yeah.
for almost a couple weeks now, giving up these point-blank shots? I don't understand why they can't keep more shots to the outside. I do understand how Boston's a heavy team. They're always trying to get the puck in the middle. But, Jesus, they got to do a better job of that. I'm not sure any goalie would do well under these circumstances.
Yeah, you're right. I mean,
here's the perfect scenario, Peter. You're going to have San Jose and St. Louis killing each other in probably a 6 or 7 game series.
Yep.
And Boston's going to sweep Carolina and have about a week and a half worth of rest and rest up all their wounded warriors. And they're going to come. It's a perfect scenario for them.
If someone's got to come out of the West and play Boston, the team probably better suited to do it is St. Louis.
Yeah.
Like in the way they play in their bodies and stuff, they're probably better suited to take on Boston, arrested Boston.
I think St. Louis is
more,
yeah, I don't know. Like the thing that's funny about the San Jose St. Louis series, and someone brought it up on TV, and it was like maybe one of those things when they bring it up, I'm like, oh man, I should have realized that, because he's absolutely right. Is the Blues are slower.
Yeah.
Than the two teams San Jose played in the first 2 rounds, right?
They are slower, but they have good endurance. We talked about how, like, in the overtime, they really had a lot of energy, but you're right, they are slower.
But Boston is faster than San Jose. Boston's skating with Carolina, and Carolina is a fast team.
True. You're right about that.
Boston's a lot more like Colorado. Dealing with Boston is a lot like dealing with Colorado for San Jose, because you have really one killer line, and then you've got scoring coming from all over the place. I mean, the fourth line of the Bruins. And that's another reason why you think they're going to win the Stanley Cup. Like, Peter, you texted out last night, the Bruins are going to win the freaking Stanley Cup, aren't they? Which I thought was hilarious. And I'm like, yeah, because what is always the common denominator? Like, some crazy fourth line steps up, and the Bruins fourth line is just ridiculous.
Yeah, but your text back to Peter should have been, hey, that's great that you're picking him now that there's 4 teams left. Great job.
Yeah, well, I give Peter a lot of credit, because Peter's the only one on this board that usually agrees with me about anything. So
I meant it more as an inevitable thing, Russ. Thanks.
Yes. Good job. Well done. So, I just think because you two just never get it.
There's no Nostradamus here.
Yeah. No, you're right on top of it. Anyway, so let's move on to Kruger.
So wait.
Okay.
Before we move on to Kruger, so are you saying you're still going to pick Carolina in this series?
No, but I don't think it's. I'm going to tell you right now that this is not going to end in 4. I'm going to guarantee you anything.
Okay. I don't know if anybody really thinks it'll end in 4.
I don't think it ends in 4. I think that.
Is it going to end in 5?
Yes. I think it will. If it doesn't end in 5.
All right. So you're showing great. You show a lot of. You're really backing Carolina here. Okay.
I picked the Bruins in 6 to win the series. That was my pick. Okay.
You have great confidence.
I picked the Bruins in 6 right away. What I'm saying is,
now you changed it to 5 because you have less confidence in Carolina than you did before.
Well, yeah.
What do you have to say?
They're down 3-0. Yeah, of course I do. But I'm not gonna. But some of you guys picked Carolina, if I remember right. So hey,
I did not pick Carolina.
Mike picked Carolina.
Mike's frozen against
me. But I think if Mike could talk, he would tell you that he did pick Carolina. All right, so Kruger, not just a place to buy your groceries in the Midwest. Kruger is a really. Have you ever been to a Kruger's?
I've been to a Kroger, yes.
Kroger's, right? They're called Kroger.
When I was in Houston, that was the only place I could shop. And then when I first moved to Virginia, there was a Kroger there too.
Right. So Adam is a Sabres fan, and he wants to know what we think of this guy. What's the deal? What is the deal with Ralph Kruger or Kroger? Kruger.
I'll tell you what I remembered about him, and he had gotten a lot out of Nail Yakupov, who nobody else could seem to. Aikens couldn't. Some of the guys under Ralph Kruger had really good offensive numbers, and so I felt like, you know what, he opened things up for that team to be able to really score. And if they're going to have that tack next year, because look, they're not going to be great defensively. They're only going to be able to do so much defensively.
Yeah,
maybe it is time to try and just because you can get more out of McDavid. The one thing that you could do is, and I was having a conversation with somebody offline the other day, and I brought it up on this show before. There are times when you watch hockey and the best player in the ice gives the puck to somebody else and they never get it back. And if we put a percentage number on that for Connor McDavid, it's probably like 30%. It might even be higher. And so if you could just tap into that a little more, maybe they'd outscore more teams.
Yeah. No, that's go ahead, Peter.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, like, the thing about Kruger, and the last I really heard about him as a coach is when he coached Team Europe in the World Cup, right? Mm-hmm. And who was one of the assistant coaches on that team but Paul Maurice. Yeah. So Paul Maurice missed basically all the Jets training camp, came back, caught up, and he was talking about his experiences, and he praised Kruger and what he learned from him, different ways of thinking, all this different stuff. So you got to remember what Kruger's been doing since he was since he left the Oilers. He's been working for the Southampton Football Club in the English Premier League, and they've had their ups and downs. But what's going on over there in terms of, analytics, data, player usage, and all this stuff is light years ahead of where the NHL is. They've got all this player tracking technology and stuff. So Kruger's going to bring in a really interesting way of doing things. It's going to be different. He's going to bring in something in. And this is my concern about the hire. I think he's a good hire, but if Buffalo isn't prepared as an organization to think differently and to try different things and work with what they've hired as a coach, this is bound to end up in frustration. Like, Botterill's got to be open-minded about some stuff. He's got to see some things and adjust and recognize maybe he's going to have to make some major roster changes depending on what Kruger's doing. Right. It's going to be really fascinating to watch, but it could be brilliant. And the guy like, and so maybe someone like Ristolainen isn't on the block anymore. Maybe well, go ahead, Mike.
To that point, Peter. I mean, that was the thing that Botterill said in the press conference that I think was the overriding theme, was that this is a fresh start. We know that Kruger is a very player-friendly coach. A guy like Thomas Vanek was interviewed by John Vogel of The Athletic, and basically displayed, talking about the plaudits. It was, just effusive in his praise of Kruger and his ability to not only reach the star player, but to reach like the 20th player on the roster to get the most out of him. And with this team, I mean, there's a ton of players, Ristolainen being one of them, a guy like Zemgus Girgensons, who early in his career I thought had a chance to be a good player, who's just sort of wallowed the last 3 or 4 years, that maybe Kruger can get to, because there's no way that Botterill is going to be able to clear out as so much of these underachievers. They need to have a coach that can reach those underachievers.
Yeah,
that's a good point.
I agree. I've always heard great things about him when he was in Edmonton, even though they didn't end well in Edmonton. But my only real great experience with him was covering the World Cup of Hockey in Team Europe and getting to talk to him quite a bit, because there were not a lot of people who were talking to Team Europe. And because no one knew that they would end up going for the, they remember they were in the gold medal game,
nobody remembers.
No one remembers that. I know. It's like they were. That Team Europe team was a really good team.
Yeah.
And he got the most out of them. And that experience, I mean, I went up to him and I said, we're all like, I had like a one-on-one with him for a while. And I remember it was great. And because it was like a press conference and there was like 2 other people, no one was talking questions. So I was going back and forth with them. And I said, this seems fascinating to me because, I know the Finns come together quickly and but there's a Finnish way of doing things and they all understand that, and the Swedes are the same way. Canadians have, a little bit more diversified, but there's still a Canadian way of playing when they play. But, what he was dealing with, like the Czechs, the Slovaks, the Slovenians, people from Switzerland.
The Swiss, yeah.
There were 7 countries, remember?
Yeah.
That were involved in this. And, to put them together in such a short period of time in a tournament like this and take them to the gold medal game was really an impressive feat.
Yeah.
Well, what did you do? And he said, well, I found a really good system that most of them had played. I did a lot of research on the systems that their various countries played. And I tried to make systems like lines based. Like there was this line would play this kind of system. This line would play that kind of system. And he was like, it was really interesting because, don't often get that much good information from a coach, but he was like sitting there and saying that's what I did, and he got a lot out of like the Bias Ryder, for example, who was like had a really rough year this year, was a great player for Team Europe because he found the right spots for him. And I wonder,
go I know that one of the strengths that they talked about was his ability to adapt to what the strengths of a current team are, and that you know, again, for Buffalo, that's a big thing. I did think the most curious aspect of the press conference with Botterill was when Skinner was brought up, and Botterill came out right out and said, that ideally Jeff would want to know who his coach is before he decided whether he wanted to sign a contract or not. And that's sort of damning because, when you're in Carolina, and I don't know if he got along well with Maurice, but I know he didn't get along well with Bill Peters, and that sort of poisoned water.
He did not get along well with Maurice, we'll say.
Yeah, so he didn't get along well with Maurice. He didn't get along well with Bill Peters, and Maurice and Kruger happened to be best buddies. So I don't know if that means anything or if it means something, but now that the coaching direction is set, now Botterill can go forward with Skinner and see if he can get a deal. I don't know whether the Sabres fans should be encouraged, because if that was one of the things that was a problem, I don't know if this is a positive or a negative. I'll see.
Tell you this. Players like Skinner, who are impending free agents, would sort of, and especially when you lead a team in scoring, want to sort of, goal scoring, want to be involved in the process. And clearly he was not involved at all. So I think that means he's testing the market. He'll get an offer from the Sabres and he'll consider it. And if they don't overspend like they need to keep him, he's probably going to test the market. That's my feeling. Now, with your two most important players, who I think really, three, Dahlin, Eichel, and Middlestat, the two of them being Americans have had no interaction probably with Ralph Kruger.
Yeah.
And Dahlin's too young to have interaction with Ralph Kruger. Right. And, that's the one thing I think Botterill missed on here, where I think the NBA actually does a good job, is that sometimes you have to look at a coach that does have some familiarity with these young players. So they already know what to do, because now you've got Jack Eichel. He's got to learn a new system all over again. Now, he'll figure it out, but Middlestat too. Like, it's just, in young players' careers, the worst thing that could happen is you keep changing coaches.
Yeah, it's like a quarterback getting a different offensive coordinator every single year. So that is a concern, and I think, though, with Skinner, I mean, it's not just term, it's not just money. It was the coach, and now that the coach has been determined, now it's back to term and money. And if they don't offer him, probably a 7 or 8 year deal, making $8.5 to $9 million, then he's going to go free agent. He's going to go someplace else. And that just makes Botterill's task even more difficult, because this team has a bunch of holes, and their defense, with Bogosian out until November at least, Lawrence Pilot, one of their young defensemen, out with shoulder reconstructive surgery, out for 6 months. And now Brandon Montour gets hurt at the World Championships, although they say it's not long-term. I mean, you can see the hole being dug for this team. Their defense was their problem already, and now they're short 2 or 3 guys who will be supposed to be in their starting lineup.
Heck, this one's for you, and I'm sure this didn't come up at the presser, but what are the odds that, Jeff Skinner went to his agent and said, now that Kruger's there, this is great, let's try and get a deal done? I would say the odds of that are like 1%.
Yeah, I thought it was a really odd thing to bring him up, actually, because if they don't get him in there, it's going to be an issue, right? Peter, do you want to add to that?
I think the thing that like all the things you talked about here are probably things that should be looked at as a positive for someone like Skinner, in that you've got a guy who can figure out solutions. He finds solutions, and that should be reassuring, because this is his reputation. Kruger is a question mark, but his reputation is really very good, and he's got results.
A good guy. Brian Burke said that
he's a good guy.
He said he's a good guy, but he said this is either a home run or a whiff.
But I think that's more dependent on how Buffalo embraces what Kruger does. Mm-hmm. If they're bringing a guy who's a change maker and a bit of a visionary, a bit of an outside the box thinker, and they're not prepared to embrace that and support it, then it's dead before it started.
What he did really well with the Team Europe was keep it very light too. Like that European team was not nervous about the situation they were in. They were reveling the fact that they were making jokes about the fact they didn't have an anthem, things like that. They kept everything completely light all the time, which I thought was
all
really
right. So think about this, Eck.
important.
Nobody in Buffalo drinks light beer. Wing sauce isn't light. There's nothing light in Buffalo. You don't even get light from the sky in Buffalo.
No, but their best player, Jack Eichel, is really not an intense. He's a light guy. Like he is.
Yeah, I don't know. He is intense.
He's intense, but he's also, he's really, as we talked about before, he's really a goofball, and he likes to have fun with things. And Kruger will have fun with that. I think it's a great move. I think it's a fantastic move, and I think that. Buffalo.
I think it has a chance to be a fantastic move. I can't say it's fantastic. I can't.
But I can't think of anybody else that Buffalo could have gotten because they had to go out. They had to.
Right, there you go. But that's when you just hit on it.
Yeah.
At this point in time, it's a good choice. If you would have had this choice, if they would have chose him over McClellan or 3 or 4 other coaches that were already hired by other teams but weren't hired at the time, and they would have been the first one out of the box and chose Ralph Kruger instead of these other guys being chosen, what would you have said?
Yeah, I don't know. I would have taken.
You're settling now the same way they are. That's the issue.
I know, but the thing is, they were in a weird spot because they really weren't set up to go after like a Vigneault or something like that. That really wasn't really where. That's not really where they are. They didn't want to go for an experienced coach. They've already tried the really young coach thing. So in a way, this guy is probably the best of both worlds because he is an experienced coach, but he's relatively new to the NHL. So you have you're not recycling somebody. This is way better than McClellan. Like this is like than Todd McClellan. This is they dodged a bullet there because they wanted Todd McClellan. McClellan.
Yeah, they wanted him in the worst way. Yeah.
And in the end of the day, the Kings are going to wish they got Ralph Kruger. I'm telling you because this is I think that. I do think it's a little bit of unfair pressure to throw Skinner under the bus like that, to finish my thought that you were saying, Russ, because he isn't signed yet. And yes, of course you want to have and I'll talk about that in a second with Duchesne. What Duchesne does in Columbus is going to have a lot to do with what Columbus does before July 1st too. But you do want to make sure that you do everything you can, and and he does need to know his coacher, but that's not something you should put him on the stand for. Putting him on the stand really puts I think
it did shine a light on him a little bit at the wrong.
It's it really was just okay, the fans think, oh, he's up there, he's probably going to sign. I don't think that's a given at all. Anyway, let's move on to some rumors here. So I hinted at a Flyers rumor, and the Flyers are apparently very much interested in Jacob Trouba. And I didn't, I'm not shocked, but at the same time, I really wasn't on the radar very much in the last couple of years with the Flyers, at least. But this is a different story. Now, the Winnipeg Jets, of course, Peter, want a defenseman back in the deal. And who do you think they want?
Well, it's going to start with a P.
It's not going to be
with a B.
It won't be. It's going to be. I was told it's going to be a draft pick and possibly this guy, but not Provorov.
I think they'd be open to a draft pick depending on where it is because they only have 3 this year. They didn't have a first last year.
Yep.
I think they'd be open to it. But, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it was Ghost.
Yeah, you're right. It seems to be Gostisbehere is the guy that they're targeting.
Yeah. So the interesting thing about is the Flyers are probably only one of the 3 teams in the NHL who have the assets to trade defense for defense.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Right. The other would be Carolina and maybe who else? A team that need to make a trade. Right.
Yeah.
The prevailing wisdom, and I heard this recently. I've got a blog and I'm waiting to put up right now. But I had heard recently that before Holland was hired, that the Oilers had been contacting the Jets, dangling Nurse as a possibility for Ehlers, and that would mean you wouldn't have to trade Trouba for a defenseman. You would be getting one back.
Right.
Well, I don't know how valid that is. I just heard it had been talked about, and when you think about that, that could be cataclysmic for the Oilers in ways. But can you imagine? Ehlers is one of the few people who could keep up with McDavid. So there's a pro and con there, but their defense is such a mess. How could they give up on Nurse? So the coming back to your point, Eck, it's an interesting thing. Again, you have to wonder, if Ghost comes to Winnipeg, there's got to be some assurance he's going to want to sign in Winnipeg. That's the big one.
Yeah.
And there's got to be some assurance that Trouba's open to being in Philadelphia, right? Like both sides need an assurance in that deal. That's the kick, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think that's out of the realms of possibility, but it's got to be there before the deal's consummated.
Yeah. Well, the rumor discussing, Mike, just jumping on here.
Sorry.
Was the rumor that I was discussing, and this was just from a single source. I haven't written about it yet. Was that the Flyers had a very strong interest in Jacob Trouba, and that the Jets were looking at Gostisbehere and a pick for that trade. And that was it's just a rumor, like I said, and but it's worth discussing.
I mean, it makes sense in the sense that the Flyers have cap space, so they could afford to sign Trouba to the extension that he's looking for. Gostisbehere offers Winnipeg cost certainty on his deal because I think he has 3 years left at a little over $4 million. So in that sense, it makes sense, but you're talking about two completely different defensemen. Trouba is a tough two-way defenseman. I think, offensively he's not gifted, but he's good enough. But defensively, he's a pain in the ass. And Gostisbehere is a very good offensive defenseman. He can rush the puck, but he's Philadelphia's Jake Gardner. That's how I interpret Gostisbehere.
Better defensively than that, but yeah. I mean, I think Gostisbehere is underrated defensively. He's not as consistent.
I don't know about underrated. I don't know about that.
He's not as consistent as Gardner, though, actually. But I would say Jake Gardner is more consistent offensively than Gostisbehere is. Gostisbehere has upsides, though.
So a couple things. So, Peter, you said that Trouba likes playing the left side, right?
You're muted, Peter. Here, I'll unmute you.
Sorry, I was just looking at something, and there's something going off in the airport.
Okay.
One of the things that Trouba only likes the right side. He doesn't.
He only likes the right. Okay, so he could play top line then with Provorov, so that's good.
So
the problem is, I think Gostisbehere and Dustin Byfuglien on the same team is a disaster because neither of them are good in their own end.
Right.
Gostisbehere may actually be a little better, but not much. And now you've got two pairings where you're going to have a couple of guys that can be liabilities at times.
Yeah.
I think that is a bad mix for the Winnipeg Jets.
So the other thing with that is don't sell Trouba short on offense. He had 50 points this year.
Yeah, he's good offensively.
He doubled his point production from last year.
Right.
I remember he was an offensive defenseman for many years.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
No, he's an offensive defenseman who plays really good defense.
Yeah. In a weird Paul Maurice hybrid system, right? In a weird system. So now you bring in AV and you've got, and you've got his henchmen on either side. It'd be very interesting to see how that all fits together if you bring in someone like Trouba. And maybe there's some fuel to your fire to this rumor or in that Gostisbehere is like, I don't want to play for these guys. Like maybe
I don't think Gostisbehere is going to want to play for them.
Maybe they know that this is going to force change too in the roster, and they're prepared to do. The Fletcher's prepared to deal with that.
Eck, I'm going to say something here that I think might shock you, but I do believe could be possible. Even though Gostisbehere may be the name that you heard for this, if the Flyers can't sign Provorov, he's going to be the name that goes because Gostisbehere is the guy that is the known quantity. They know what they can get out of him. They know the offense. He has a salary set. Right. Provorov does not have a salary set, and neither will Trouba when he gets there after the 1 year. So if they haven't signed Provorov by the time they get close to this trade, Provorov could be in that trade.
I mean, that's the thing we have to look. That's the thing we have to look out for early July. As much as we're going to be looking for guys who are going to sign free agent contracts, UFAs, or offer sheets, it's also going to be RFAs who get traded because teams simply can't get them signed, and Provorov is one of them.
Yeah,
and I don't think Marner is going to be one because I think eventually the Leafs are going to pay him. But there are other guys like Matthew Tkachuk or a couple of the guys with the Jets who could be traded because they simply cannot get these guys signed. Now they may wait until September and try to win a protracted battle with these players, but As we saw with William Nylander, that doesn't work. That in the end lowers the value of the player, even if it's for a temporary amount of time. I mean, Nylander's value may have taken a hit because of the way he played during the season, and he's going to now he's starting to get it back with his performance at the World Championships. But that can affect things. So I mean, it's something we have to look out for.
I think we have to look at this, Eck, and say we know when the season ended that Chuck Fletcher said he was going to have negotiations with Provorov.
Yep.
Well, they've been having negotiations. We don't hear anything about it, and now we hear a rumor.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to believe right now that the two sides aren't as close as we'd like to think they are, or you wouldn't hear any rumor. You would probably hear the rumor that, hey, Provorov's about to get signed, and they're going to announce it, any day in a week. So this is, to me, this is the biggest problem with this trade is you can't go and make this trade if Provorov's negotiations are way up in the air.
Right. You can only make it, Russ, if you've succeeded in getting a number from Provorov that you can live with. You've got the deal locked. Then you can afford to trade Gostisbehere in another deal. The thing is, you're basically taking on another headache because Trouba has got the clock ticking. If he doesn't want to sign, all he's going to do is sign the 1-year qualifying offer or with the Jets for this year, and he goes to free market next year.
I do want to give a quote from Jeff Skinner's agent. I got it off of Twitter. I don't know his agent's name, and I forget whose account I took it off.
I think it's Pat Brisson.
Okay, it is Brisson. So basically he said, while it's too early to say what Ralph Kruger's hiring means to Jeff Skinner's future, I think Ralph is very well respected. That couldn't be any further from a good news quote.
Yeah, that's boilerplate.
That's what I wrote. It's boilerplate, man.
Yeah, it's totally boilerplate. Other rumors going out there. This was an interesting one. Okay. I heard the Robin Leonard, who we've talked about a lot, is a free agent, and I got the impression, the way they played him and they stuck with him as the guy that when thgoing to that, they're sending a message that he's going to be the guy and that they want him to stay around. And they're not not going to Grice, which could because Leonard is going to be a free agent.
Right.
So that was the thought process. Although, then talking to people who went to like breakdown day with the Islanders and other people who talked to different people, they said they really didn't get a strong feeling on whether Robin Leonard would be back. And it was surprising to them. Like they thought they would get a better inclination of it. Right. So what I heard was a possibility of Robin Leonard's rights being traded for Sergei Bobrovsky's rights, that the two teams would do a rights switch.
Well, okay, this is the only, when you mentioned this before, and there's been rumors out there about Bobrovsky and Panarin's rights being traded. That makes sense in the Carolina perspective because they can get something for players that they know are not going to sign there, and those players have such a desire from a number of teams in the market that there's an advantage to the team trading for them to acquire them and to give them the 8-year max deal. No one in their right mind is giving Robin Leonard an 8-year max deal. No. That's only motivation. The 5-day negotiating window before July 1st is enough.
No, I think that Robin Leonard, remember, isn't he like a Vezina finalist? I mean, you're talking about like a serious
yes, for the first time in his career, though, and
I'm not. You guys know I'm not a huge Leonard fan, but he is coming off a great year, and I think that where Columbus really likes their prospects coming down the line, and they feel like they only need somebody for like 2 years, maybe three possibly, to bridge the distance between Elvis arriving, which everybody is all fired up in Columbus for. So,
Heck, I'll tell you what the Long Islander in me thinks. Right, if I'm thinking like an Islanders fan, I hate this idea because I know the chances of my team signing Bobrovsky are almost nil, and I love it if I'm a Columbus fan because Leonard probably could latch on very easily there and be the number one guy and like the city and everything else. But the odds of the Islanders signing Bobrovsky are slim and none.
I don't think that's true. I think the
Islanders. Hold on.
Yeah.
If they're going to pay Bobrovsky $8 million a year.
Yep.
For like 4 or 5 years.
Yep.
Are they trading Grice or are they going to put $12 million in the net? There's no way Lou's doing that. No way.
Lou is going to get a number one goalie, I was told flat out, and he is convinced. And I think he would be trading Grice or he would be moving Grice or.
Okay.
At the end of the day, there is definitely they are one of the top teams for Bobrovsky. There aren't that many teams, and they definitely They definitely are.
He's going to spend the money and trade Grice, then I believe it.
Yeah, I mean, there's no question that Bob is Lou's focal point. Like that is that he is the guy that Lou wants more than Panarin, more than anybody else, and he wants Panarin too. The big question is, everybody is kind of assuming that Florida is going to be big on both of these guys, right? That Florida will be big on Bobrovsky, Florida will be big on Panarin.
Yeah.
And talking to somebody, I talked to a source yesterday on Panarin, and his quote, I wrote in my blog today, his quote was, "The assumption of Panarin to Florida is now officially no more." Said, hearing he is weighing out many options and weighing in with more than just location. So that it's just not about that with Panarin, at least, it's not just about being in Florida.
Okay, so his agent is widening the field, but now I've got to say the New York Rangers are probably the number one team for him now.
Yeah, well, and what I wrote in here is I'd say there's a 50% chance that Artemi ends up with either the Rangers or the Islanders. And I think
sounds like Jaromir Jagr now. If you remember, Jagr had told his mother at some point in his life, I always wanted to play for the Rangers, and he made it happen, right?
Yeah.
We don't know about Panarin because he keeps things close to the vest, but it almost sounds to me like by doing this, the distancing himself from Florida,
that
he's putting the Rangers in perfect position to grab him.
Yeah, I do agree. And the Rangers, I mean, already, picking up.
Yeah, they're ready for him. Yeah, and they have a Russian contingent. Like they've got Russian players, they've got Russian goalies. Like think about it.
And Russians love playing in New York. I mean, they always have. And the addition of Fox, who I've been really impressed with watching him in the World.
Oh yeah, Fox has been good in the World Championship.
He looks like he's ready for the NHL right now for sure. Yeah. Then you looking at obviously they're going to get Kakko. Kakko. Yeah, they're going to have him. So between Kakko and Fox, I mean, that's right there. You're adding two significant pieces to your team without giving up anything right off the top. So, add Panarin. Now you're really, now you're suddenly a serious team. And the thing that they have going, they also have Lundqvist there. And having a solid goalie is a big deal for free agents whenever they sign somewhere. So that's the issue with Columbus is knowing that they're going to lose Bobrovsky, trying to keep Duchesne. They need to tie up somebody like Robin Lehner so they can show Duchesne that they've got the goalie. Because if they don't have the goalie, Duchesne, who got out of Colorado because he was like I want to be on a winner. And Duchesne had that famous press conference where he's like, I want to go someplace where you have a chance of winning.
Yeah.
Gets traded from Colorado, who of course is obviously a much better team, to Ottawa, who had just come off of a good Stanley Cup playoffs, and then had a horrible time there. Duchesne, as much as he loved Columbus, I was told, is not going to go someplace that he thinks could be like Ottawa again, like a team that could go backward.
Yeah. Well, all right. Let's talk about this then. So, if you're Anders Lee.
Mm-hmm.
And Robin Lehner gets traded, the rights get traded, right?
Yep.
You're not signing your deal until you find out if they sign Bobrovsky or not, because you're not going back there if they don't have a bona fide number one. As much as he might like Thomas Greiss, he's not going to put his career on the line for Thomas Greiss. You would, but he won't.
I'm not putting my career on the line.
This is the interesting thing. There's been some speculation out there that Brock Nelson, that they're close on Brock Nelson.
Yeah, because he's the cheaper option. That's
right, exactly, and that sends warning signs to me about Anders Lee. That means okay, we're going to lock up the guy that we know that we can get, but the guy that we don't know if we can get or not, we're in trouble on because he wants term, he wants money, and we're not willing to give him that.
Right.
And the other
Nelson will only want 4 or 5 years. He'll get like 5.5 a year, and that's palatable for Lou, and he'll sign that tomorrow if he can get it. Lee is going to want 8 years. He's going to want at least $8 million, and they'll talk from there and then figure out the rest.
Yeah, I mean, he's not going to get 8 years because he's older. I was told Lee, Lee's
not.
No,
but he's going to ask for it, and they're going to start.
He's going to ask for it. I don't think anyone's going to give him even 7. Right. I think Lee is probably like maybe 6 years out of the Islanders, 5 years out of somebody else type thing.
Right, but if he's going to get 6 years, then he's a center, and he can play center. And there'll be teams out there that will bid for him as if he is a center. He'll get $7 million at least.
Yeah, he'll get 7.
Maybe.
He'll ask 8 for 8, and he'll probably get 7 for 6.
The center market right now is Matt Duchesne, who might re-sign with Columbus, Lee, and Kevin Hayes, and that's basically it.
Well,
there's not a ton to center.
And remember, Barzal's going to come knocking to Lou and say, hey, you ready to do a long-term deal? And they can't. And they can't without knowing what Lee is.
Well, I'm not so sure about that, Russ, because Barzal might follow the model of all these RFAs this year. He's going to, Lou probably will say to him, you wait till the end of your contract, and Barzal will say, yeah, I'll wait, and then when I put up another 75 or 80-point season, I'll expect $10 million.
No, and that's why I'm saying but no, I don't know if he'll do it that way. I don't think Barzal will do it that way because until a couple of years ago, people were sort of iffy still on Barzal. They shouldn't have been, and even the Islanders were, and I felt like they could have brought him up a year earlier, but they didn't. Yeah. I think Barzal is going to take the money quicker than that. I do.
Yeah, I kind of do too. And I think the way Lou works, I have a feeling that Lee is already figured out. I really do.
I don't think so.
Because, first of all, he's like that. He's the leader. He's the American kid. It's just like this is the kind of guy that Lou brings into his office and says, all right, we're going to figure you out, but let's just be quiet for a while. Like this reminds me of so many other players he's had. I could be wrong, but it feels like if it is if Brock Nelson is close, I think then Lee is really close as well. I would just feel that way. Now Brock Nelson also is a center technically. But and he was played a lot of center for the Islanders this year. It's like their top center at times. So, that's the other issue too. So there's a lot of options there. The other thing with Matt Duchene that comes into play. So Matt Duchene, if he suddenly decides, hey, I don't want to go back to a team that could be falling apart, which I'm not saying Columbus is falling apart, but the idea here is Duchene is at the point in his career where he wants to go someplace that is definitely solid. Like he has been through some situations that don't work very well for him. Ottawa was a tough ride for him. Colorado was a tough ride for him. The team that always wanted him is Nashville, and Nashville and Duchene feel like they feel like this might be the summer that actually fits together.
Well, and that might be the case, and I that's been out there for a while, and you've reported that as well. And coincidental to that is Darren Drager reporting that the Predators are really trying to shop Turris. And I think that they only get that deal done in terms of if they can sign Duchene, if they can bail on Turris's $6 million salary. And that might not even be enough because I think Duchene's going to be probably asking for 8.5, because he's the top center in this market.
All right, hold on. I got something good here, Ek. So on Twitter,
yep.
Anders Lee's agent, Neil Sheehy, he put out a tweet saying, I am proud of the way Anders Lee carried himself this season as captain of the Islanders. Tuesday did a nice job in an article today regarding his role. Boy, that's interesting timing on that while he's negotiating for a contract, don't you think?
Oh, yeah. She is a good one, too. As far as that kind of stuff goes, he plays it pretty well.
He's playing coy on that one because he's right now buttering up the Islanders, but also saying, hey, he's the captain. You better pay him.
Yeah. I mean, they're not. It's funny. They're not just. That is really interesting. They're not
you
just.
lost one captain, Lou. Now you're going to lose two.
Not. Drager is and they're very different kind of situations. Drager's. I mean, Torres is an obvious. They've been trying to trade Torres, for a long time. I mean,
I know.
Torres has been very, very underperforming his contract. I mean, completely underperforming his contract. But the thing that really the player that I think is interesting to look at, and it's not, it's not PK Subban. A lot of people say that.
I'm telling you, it's Subban.
It's possible, but he is such a hard player to move, and I don't think that. I mean, they would still have to get a lot for him. It's more that they'd have to get a ton for him. It's not PK is not going anywhere. The guy I would look at is Ryan Johansson. Honestly, talking to people down there. There have been teams that have talked to them about Ryan Johansson. The price is really high, but I know two teams at least that have talked to them about Ryan Johansson.
Well, it only makes sense if they to trade Johansson if they do get Duchene because they have to have a number one center, and Johansson is that. Right.
No, then that is I think the thinking on that. I think they have a pretty good sense that Duchene would go there. I think they really feel like they have a pretty good, it's how they would make that work, how they would make that fit. I mean, you remember Duchene, and one of our guys in the chat room said he was in Nashville a week ago partying on Broadway. Duchene was.
Yeah, he owns property in Nashville.
Yeah, and remember Duchene is like fancies himself a musician. I mean, he as well. So it's like this is all like perfect. This is the perfect place for Matt Duchene to go. There's no two ways about that. I'm going to be going on the Slapshot radio show later tonight with Peter. With Paul. So we'll be talking about that as well, and as well as other things tonight. But Yeah, I think Ryan Johansson is the player to look at. I do. I think there are teams that have serious interest in him, and right now the price is just high, but they could move him. And he has been very, up and down, for them, and they, especially on the power play, they really haven't gotten what they want to get out of him on the power play. Last person I want to get to before we get out.
I do want to say this because there's a lot of talk right now online that Lee will accept like a JVR contract. I'll tell you why he won't. Because he's 28. There's no way he's only going to accept 5 years and 33 try and risk getting another contract. He is going to want this contract to run him through longer in his career than 33.
I would say he wants a 6 at the minimum.
At least 6.
6 at the minimum and 7,
He's not going to get $7 million a year. There's no way.
No. 7 years. But if he gets 7 years, then he might not get $7 million. But if it's 6 years, he's going to get $7 million.
I don't think so. I really, Anders Lee has not been a superstar for very long. He's not even a superstar now, but he's a star player.
But it's the market, Eck. It's the market.
It is the market, and it is what he does. He's a guy who plays
not in the $7 million range. No way.
Well, okay. Let me tell you this: without Anders Lee, who the hell's playing in the crease for that team?
Oh, I know he's very important to that team. Don't get me wrong. But will Jordan Eberle get $7 million a year?
No,
not a chance.
Right, but he's
first of all, he's a winger. Second, he's had 2 bad regular seasons in a row, and he had a decent playoff.
Well, Lee is not just a center, right? Like Lee is.
He can play center. He can play wing.
He can play center or wing. He's also good defensively. Yeah. He also can be physical. That's why JVR, the comparison doesn't work because JVR is more of a one-dimensional guy. Lee does a lot more, but Lee also, again, he gets in the crease. They lose him. Brock Nelson is your only other player that pretty much plays in the crease sometimes.
Yeah, Ross Johnston will be in the crease for them then, with his deft touch around the net. But no, honestly, it's this is the thing. We have to get used to this. In this market, a guy like Tyler Myers, a guy like Jake Gardner will get overpaid. The same with Kevin Hayes. The same with Anders Lee. Jake Gardner does not deserve to make $6 million a year, but he will.
Well, overpaid is all relative. I do agree with you that Jake Gardner will get $6 million a year, but not 7. I think Anders Lee will get $6 million and not 7. And I think a lot of people would say that Anders Lee's probably more of like a.
Well, I don't think Lee's going to accept 6. I don't.
We'll see. He's also the captain of that team. He does feel a strong kinship to that team. He's had his ups and downs as a player. It's kind of reminds me of like you talked about before, of a player who's been around long enough. They might be like, okay, this is definitely his best contract to sign, but he's not a star. Mm-hmm. Anders Lee, he's not like to me, 7 is a star. Like that's
okay. All right, but think about this. Teravainen right now is making 5.4.
Right.
You're going to pay Anders Lee 6, and you think he's going to accept that? He's going to look at Teravainen and say, "I've scored 40 goals in this league." No,
but not a lot, not often. He's got 1 year.
Nobody was going to score 40 goals on the Islanders this year.
And with this year coming up, $7 million is not a star. William Nylander got 6.9. Yeah. He's not a star. He's a good player. He's not a star. Yeah. A few years ago,
he's not a center either.
Right.
It'll be hard. It'll be interesting to see. But the other thing I want to talk about Jake Gardner real quick before we get out of here too. Okay. Gardner, I was trying to put some quotes in from sources today, and the quote I had today was no shortage of suitors for him. Plenty of teams more than happy to talk. Expect Gardner to have quite the North American tour during the 1 week of allowed talking prior to July 1st.
Not surprising, and don't include Toronto in that group because they haven't even talked to him.
No, I said it's highly improbable if he returns to Toronto. I have him at 10%, but that's about as low as you can have for a player who's been there before.
I don't think Gardner's going to get signed until somebody's figured out Carlson and somebody has figured out with these trades with Trouba and otherwise.
Yeah,
Jake Gardner's going to probably wait a few weeks.
Maybe.
I don't know about a few weeks, but I think
the market's going to be that robust for him. I don't.
No, I think Carlson's a different animal altogether, right? And Trouba's if Trouba hasn't been traded, that's possible. Yeah, you're right there. That's more in his world. But Carlson is like Carlson and the Rangers are on this collision course, so we have to figure. That's like the whole thing. That's what everybody seems to be saying about Erik Karlsson.
He's a Lundqvist. He'll reach out. It all depends on contract.
Right, but that more than likely is going to unfold fairly quickly. The chatter with that situation will go on during the 5-day window, and it probably gets settled, if not on July 1st, then on July 2nd. I mean, I agree that Gardner might take a few more days to unfold, but he's the plan B. And don't get me wrong, he's not in the same ballpark as Erik Karlsson, but teams that strike out on Karlsson are going to be looking for a puck rushing defenseman. The only thing I think that hinders Gardner is his back injury, and that medically will be communicated to the interested teams well in advance of July 1st.
I'll tell you what, I guarantee you Henrik Lundqvist, now they're playing tonight, right? St. Louis.
Yeah.
Henrik Lundqvist will show up in a limousine tonight with sunglasses on and that blue suit that he looks great in, and he'll go he'll know when the players are walking in the building. He'll be like, Eric, psst, you got a minute? And he'll chat with him before the game, and that'll be that.
He'll fix
in Slovakia right now. Remember that.
He'll fix those.
Oh yeah. So Lundqvist can't fly to Slovakia. Sorry, Mike.
He'll fix those blue eyes on Eric and transfix him, and he'll bring him to New York.
Yeah, beautiful couple. Jake Gardner and the two teams that I've heard the most connected with him right now are Montreal, which Leaf fans will love, and Chicago. I
can see Chicago, but they're not going to pay. They don't have big money to pay him.
Believe me, Toronto could only be so lucky that they could face him 4 times a year and take advantage of his giveaways. I've heard Vancouver be mentioned. Yeah,
Vancouver.
Possibly. I've heard Vancouver. Most interesting thing I heard about Vancouver the last 24 hours was that they are exploring Panarin as a possibility. So that's I'm not saying that that's a definite.
Yeah, but is Panarin exploring them?
Right. Yeah. Great.
Yeah. No, I know. But now in the chat room, quick questions, and we got to go. There was somebody who said, okay, Lincoln asks Eck, have you heard anything with Subban to Pittsburgh? Friedman floated Subban for Malkin. I have not heard that. I don't think that trade would ever happen. But I think that I'm sure the Preds would be all into getting Malkin, but I don't think the Penguins would benefit from PK Subban as much.
No.
Right now. I mean, and PK is a great player still. So I'm not ripping on PK at all. The other thing in here, are the Isles ever going to break ground in the arena at Belmont Park, Russ? What do you think?
I mean, they are at some point.
The reports that came out said it would happen after the Belmont Stakes.
Right. Okay. So we'll watch. We'll wait for the Belmont Stakes. We'll wait and see if it happens. If it doesn't, then people are going to start getting skeptical. But Lou did leave it open. He said this summer. So now we have to wait. I would say August is the drop dead point. If you don't hear something by August, summer's pretty much over at that point. The shark, nobody's looking out for the shark attacks anymore.
And buy your seat licenses in Quebec City, folks.
The other thing, Eck, you're talking about paying Jake Gardner, let's say $6 million for Chicago.
Yeah, how?
Yeah, they're paying Duncan Keith 5.8 for what he's doing or not doing.
It's the reason
they're getting that Quenneville's back in the league. That's all I can say about that.
Oh, really? Quenneville's going to go reach out for Duncan Keith?
No.
No.
The reason that Chicago won't do that is because they have 2 young defensemen coming, Jokiharju and Boquist. They have Gustafsson, who was offensively is very similar to Gardner. He's not a good defensive player. He's more of a rover. So they're okay with those young defensemen and with Gustafsson, and if they could find a way to get rid of Seabrook or Keith, I'm sure they would love to, but I don't think they'll be able to. I don't see adding a $6 million defenseman in Gardner. Actually, the place I think that Gardner could go, and it makes a whole bunch of sense, is because he's from Minnesota, is Minnesota if they decide to trade a guy like Spurgeon or one of their other defensemen.
Yeah, Minnesota's got a lot of stuff going on right now. They're going to be a really interesting team to watch over the next couple of weeks. They are going to make big changes from what I've been told. So there could be a big trade coming out of there. That's all the time we have for today, guys. Great as always. Remember, you can visit us at patreon.com/hockey to support the show. And the other thing we never say, which we really should say, is if you subscribe to us on iTunes, go and write and make a comment or something like that and say something nice about us. That would be nice. It helps raise. What it does is or say something terrible, but it helps raise the.
We're more used to that.
it'll put us into more of recommendations along with YouTube if you would like and subscribe. A lot of you watch it all the time. I mean, we have about 700 of you who watch it pretty much every day, and more on certain days. So if you could all help out in some way, shape, or form by liking or subscribing or passing things along, that would be great. Or going to patreon.com/hockey and just even like.
No, you got to do it in a more New York way. If you want to continue watching this show, you'll do this. There you go.
Yeah, there you go.
Give me your money or else.
That's what I'm telling you, right? Give us your money. We need the money. We're just doing this for the cold hard cash.
I'm hungry. I need your money.
Yes, we need to get Mike a date. All right.
I don't want to pay for a date.
No, I'm not saying. I'm not implying that at all. Okay. Remember, without the buzz, it is just hockey. We will talk to you tomorrow.